Good evening, everyone. You're very welcome to this evening's talk on supporting the development of resilience in your child. My name is Nicola Harvey and I work with Prevention, Partnership and Family Support in Tusla. I'm joined by my colleague Breege Ward, who is the coordinator of Dunfanaghy Family Resource Centre. We're delighted to be able to bring this webinar to you this evening thanks to funding received under the HSE Resilience and Recovery Fund. This evening's talk is also being recorded and will be made available later in the year under a parenting initiative funded through the HSE Community Health Organisation Area 1, which covers Cavan, Monaghan, Donegal, Sligo and Leitrim. Our speaker this evening is Dr Caroline Burrow. Dr Burrow is a chartered clinical psychologist who runs an independent practice here in West Donegal. Dr Burrow has over 25 years' experience of working in the NHS, as well as working with various charities and independent sectors. She has worked with children, young people and families providing psychological support and therapy. This evening, Dr Burrow will talk for probably 30 to 40 minutes, and there will then be an opportunity for some questions. We would ask if you could put your questions into the Q&A box during the talk, and either myself or Breege will put the questions to Caroline at the end. A copy of tonight's presentation will be sent to everybody who had registered for the talk, and that will be sent by email. So without further ado, I'll not speak any longer. I'm going to hand you over to Dr. Burrows, and we do hope that you enjoy the talk and that you find it very beneficial. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicola. Welcome, everybody. Before I start talking, I'm just going to invite you just to join me in a kind of grounding, breathing practice. And this is part of one of the ways that we can develop resilience, is by making a connection with our body, a connection with our environment, and also helping us to regulate our emotions. So if you want to join in the practice, you can either do this with your eyes closed, if you feel comfortable enough to do it with your eyes closed. If not, just maybe fix your eyes on a point in front of you, maybe on a wall or on the floor, just so you're not getting distracted. So just gently settling in. And if you're sitting down, which I hope you are, just allowing your body just to settle into where you're sitting. And just noticing your feet on the floor. Noticing your body being held by the chair. And maybe if you need to make any adjustments to feel a little bit more comfortable, just make those adjustments. So leaving behind the conversations of the day, leaving behind any tasks you've been doing or any tasks that are left undone. And just noticing your body. And then just becoming aware of your breathing. So without trying to change it in any way, just become aware of where in your body you notice the breathing. So it might be at the chest or abdomen as it rises and falls with each in and out breath. Or it might be at the nose or mouth as the breath enters and leaves the body. But just spending a few moments just noticing your breathing. Seeing if you can suspend any judgments about how you're breathing or how you should be breathing. Just observing the breath with a gentle curiosity. And if your mind wanders to something else, which it is likely to do, just gently bringing your focus back to the breathing. So using your breath as an anchor into the present moment. So just for a few moments, focusing on the breath. And then maybe bringing to mind a memory of something that's made you smile recently, or something that brings you joy. And just letting that memory come into your head. Maybe it comes as an image. Maybe you just recall whatever happened. And just letting your body remember that memory that brings you joy or makes you smile. And just notice how that feels in your body. And then just expanding your awareness just to notice your feet on the floor again. Maybe bring a little bit of movement into your body as you prepare to end your practice. Maybe wiggling your fingers a little bit, or wiggling your toes, maybe shifting slightly in your seat. And then just bringing your awareness to any sounds that you can hear around you. So sounds in the room, sounds outside the room, sounds outside the building. And then just when you feel ready, opening your eyes again. And just having a little look around the room. Just refamiliarizing yourself with where you are. And when you're ready, just bringing your attention back to the screen. So welcome back. I hope you found that was settling. It helps you to just bring your presence. So as Nicola said, I'm going to be talking this evening about supporting the development of resilience in your child. So what do we mean by resilience, first of all? So when we talk about resilience, what we mean is our ability to adapt to stressful situations or crises. So it's that sense of our ability to bounce back from something. So there's various definitions. So the capacity to maintain competent functioning in the face of major life stresses. So that means essentially we can just get on with things. You know, we can manage our life even though there's lots of stresses going on around us. Now, resilience is not one thing. Resilience is a combination of behaviours, thoughts and actions. And it's not something that we're kind of born with. It's not something that we just necessarily have, but it's something that can be learned and developed. So if we're not very resilient, we can learn and develop these behaviours, thoughts and actions so that we can become more resilient. And it comprises of many different factors. So it comprises of our kind of physical health, our mental health, our vitality, our energy. It's also built up with our self-awareness, our self-esteem, our confidence, the way that we are aware of emotions and how we regulate emotions, and also things like persistence, the way that we think about things, flexible thinking and reasoning abilities. Resilience is also comprised of our interpersonal relationships, so how we interact with other people, how we communicate with other people, and how we cooperate with other people. So there's many factors that make up resilience. It's not just one thing. Now, I think we can all agree that the recent years have been really challenging. So challenging both collectively for us as communities and globally and also individually. And we may have experienced some really difficult times in the last few years, and lots of uncertainty, and still many of us are experiencing difficult times and uncertainty. So resilience is fundamental to our well-being and how we survive in such difficult times. And the earlier we can develop resilience in our life, the better, really. Now, when we think about developing our children's resilience, we can also develop our own resilience. So we can support ourselves and each other to cope with whatever life throws at us. And really, when we are resilient ourselves, we're better able to help our children to be resilient as well. So we're talking today about how we can help to develop our children's resilience, but essentially we can use these points to develop our own resilience as well. So the aim of the webinar is to provide you with an understanding of how you can develop both yours and your children's resilience. So why does resilience help us before we talk about kind of how to develop it? So it improves our well-being. As we said, it helps us to deal with difficult times and stressful situations. It also improves our interpersonal relationships, and it's kind of a cyclical thing that the better our interpersonal relationships are, the more resilient we're likely to be, but our resilience also improves our interpersonal relationships. It helps us to develop skills to help deal with challenges later in life. So as children grow, unfortunately, all of our children are going to experience some challenges in our life, as all of us do. And it helps them to develop the skills that they need to deal with these challenges. If we have strong resilience, we're less likely to develop anxiety and depression. It helps us to build confidence, and it improves our problem solving and learning new skills. It also helps us to manage, understand, and tolerate difficult emotions. So all emotions are useful, all emotions are very valid and necessary, but sometimes it's difficult to cope with overwhelming emotions. And resilience helps us to develop that emotional regulation and develop that emotional intelligence to be able to understand emotions and know what to do when they come along. We're less likely to avoid problems or deal with them in unhealthy ways if we have strong resilience. So we're less likely to get into unhelpful coping strategies, such as things like alcohol or drugs or other avoidant coping strategies that don't help in the long run. So if we have strong resilience, we're more likely to cope with these problems rather than have to develop unhealthy coping strategies. So we're going to talk about today the 7 C's of resilience. So there's lots of models of resilience. This particular model, the 7 C's, is a really nice one that was developed by a pediatrician, Dr. Ken Ginsberg. And he describes 7 qualities that help to build resilience in children. So to help them to be more able to cope with the difficulties in their lives. And one of the best ways to teach these qualities to your child is actually to model them. So is to show your child what it is to have these qualities. So to develop them in yourself and then show them in your everyday life. And as you teach your child, you'll also strengthen these qualities in yourself. So the 7 C's are competence, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. And we'll go through each one of them. So competence. So what we mean by competence is the ability to effectively handle various situations. So whatever life throws at us, I have the competence to, I have the ability to handle it. I trust my own judgment. I can make responsible choices for me, and I can face difficult situations. So this is essentially about helping your child to focus on their strengths and to build on them. So one of the ways of doing this is to help your child make safe mistakes and give them opportunities to correct them. So when we're helping our children to develop competence, we don't want to be too overprotective. So we don't want to solve all the children's problems for them. We want to try and teach them and to encourage that they're capable of handling a situation. So it can be easy if a child's struggling that we want to take them out of the situation and make it better for them. But that isn't always helpful. So it's sometimes helpful to help your child learn how to develop and handle a situation even if they don't like it. So for example, that might be like a visit to the dentist, you know, that they're not very keen to go, but we help them to get the ability to handle that difficult situation that none of us really like. Apologies to any dentists out there. So essentially what we're doing is we're gradually increasing the difficulty of the tasks as your child builds their skills. So this would be an age appropriate tasks that you would help your child to develop. So for example, for younger children, it might be helping them when they're getting ready and getting washed and brushing their teeth, putting their clothes on, that you'll gradually help them to do it more and more by themselves. And often it's easier, isn't it, to just do it for them, but to try and give them opportunities when you can to do it themselves, even if it's a lot slower, because it helps them to develop that competence. So they could also help prepare a meal, set the table, carry something for you, wash a vegetable, whatever. Okay. So when children are a little bit older, we might think about how we might encourage them to take healthy risks. This might be things like sport or, going hiking or things like that. So walking to and from school, or going to the neighbour's house, going to the shop by themselves. So we're encouraging them to be able to do things by themselves. So help prepare the family meal, make their own lunch, things like that, rather than, again, doing it all for them. So the next one is confidence. So this is about helping your child to develop a belief in their abilities. So I'm confident in myself. I'm confident that I have the ability to face and cope with life's challenges. So we can develop this by helping your child to notice when they did something well, to try not to make your child feel shame. So it's quite easy to make children feel shame, and often we don't mean to do that, but just to be aware of that, to kind of avoid shaming them in any way, because that really attacks a child's confidence. So set your child up for success. So don't push them into things that they can't handle. Don't let them take on too much. So it's a balance, isn't it, of letting them do what they can, and not too much, not letting them be overwhelmed. But it's setting them up for success. So when we talked about the tasks before, we're going to set up a child to be able to do those tasks. So we're going to ask them to do tasks that we know that they can succeed on. So examples might include, as well as including focusing on achievements, we can also praise, that's not what I wanted to do, there we go. So we can also praise and encourage personal qualities. So for example, kindness or fairness, sharing, integrity, persistence, things like that. So rather than, oh, you did really well at school, we might think about, oh, you were really kind today. So well done for that. When we're developing a child's confidence, it's important to praise honestly and specifically. So, for example, rather than saying, oh my goodness, you're such an amazing artist, look at that painting, it's incredible. Your child will probably know that you don't necessarily mean that, unless they are an amazing artist. But you might want to say, oh, I love the colours that you used in that picture, so that you can be really honest about your praise and be quite specific about it. Because when we praise in that way, it's more believable to the child, so it has more of an impact for them. When we're very general in our praise, or when we kind of go over the top, then the child doesn't necessarily take that in, because they kind of don't believe it. And as we said before, encouraging children to aim for realistic goals. So go for goals that you think they can achieve, but a little bit more than what they've already achieved. So they're always increasing, but it's always achievable. And that helps to build that confidence up. So the next C we've got here, is connection. So this is about developing close relationships with family, friends, school, community, and it's about developing that sense of security. So in order to help your children develop this quality, it's about teaching your child that it's okay to have and express a variety of emotions. Now, you might know for yourself that you struggle with certain emotions, and so it's important, if that's the case, that you learn to develop an understanding that it's okay to have and express a variety of emotions. So showing warmth and affection is really, really important to give that sense of security and close relationships, and it helps your child to then show warmth and affection to other people. Addressing any family conflict and working together to resolve problems is really helpful in developing that sense of connection and giving your child skills in their interpersonal relationships. And if there's difficulties with that, you can always look at trying to get some help, because it's not always easy to do that on your own within a family. Encouraging your child to get involved in any groups that are important to your family or community is really helpful. Helping your child to connect with family history, to give them a sense of belonging, a sense of family, a sense of where they've come from, encouraging your child to socialize. So not all children are natural socializers. So some children might want to socialize in different ways than others and might want to have different amounts of socialization. So it's okay if your child doesn't always want to socialize, but just encouraging them, not letting them completely avoid that, but supporting them to do that if they struggle with that a little bit. So talking to your child about others' feelings and modeling good relationships. So as we said before, one of the best ways for your child to develop resilience is to learn from you directly. So is to watch you, is to see you modeling these factors of resilience. So looking at your relationships and making sure that they're nurturing, that you can set healthy boundaries, that you can be assertive, clear communication, you can accept feedback, and you can ask for support where help when needed. So that's what you're teaching your child, is a good relationship. So for younger children, like we said before, it's showing that warmth and affection. So when children are very, very young, in their first few years of life, touch is really important in creating a strong attachment. So cuddles and hugs, but learning how your child likes to be shown affection. So some children might like big hugs, some children might like that a little bit less. But asking your child what do they like and giving them that physical affection. Doing things together that they enjoy. So asking them what would you like to do together, and talking to your child about things that interest them. And I know that this can be really difficult if you've been at work all day and you're tired and your child is trying to tell you about something that maybe they've told you lots of things before, but just making that little effort to, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, you know, to really listen to them about what interests them. So asking open questions as well helps to develop that sense of connection. So tell me about all the things you like about going to the beach, for example, not do you like going to the beach? So for older children, again, it's trying to make sure that you have quality time together, showing affection and acceptance, but also respecting your child's boundaries. So as children get older, they may not want you to demonstrate physical affection in public places in the same way that they did when they were younger. So respecting your child's boundaries, asking your child about what they like and what they don't like. So talking to your child about who they are, what they like, what they don't like, what they value in their life, what's important to them. And be accepting when there are differences between you and your child. So you're not going to have the same opinions, you're not going to have the same values, and so validating what's important to them, even if it's different from what's important to you. So talking to them about what's happening in their life, interests, sports, school, and again asking open questions. So rather than just did you enjoy school today? Tell me about school. How was that? Okay. So the next is character. So when we talk about character, this is the idea that we develop a sense of what's right and wrong, the development of values, and also that we develop a kind of caring attitude towards others. So you can see there's a lot of overlap between the 7 C's. There's lots of things that kind of connect with each other. So one of the ways you can help develop character is to help your child understand how their behaviors affect other people, that their behaviors have consequences, and some of those consequences might affect other people. We can help our children to make decisions based on what's right and wrong and the consequences of their actions. So we can talk through decision making with our children so that they understand what might be the consequence of taking this decision versus that decision, and what might be a kind of right decision, like what might be a fair decision or a kind decision, and what might be something that might be a wrong decision, so something that goes against what you and your children's values are. It's also about recognizing the importance of caring for others and themselves. So this is about developing, yes, that we want to care for others, but also that we're important too. We want to care for ourselves. So it's about developing that compassion. So self-compassion as well as compassion from others. And it's really important that we're a role model in this. So as we said, again, modeling kind of your sense of right and wrong and sharing your values with your child so that they have an understanding of your character, so that as they develop theirs. So some examples of how we might help our children develop character. So with younger children, we might show them how they can show empathy. So for example, let's get Liam a chair to sit on because he's hurt his leg. So you're showing empathy. You're showing the child that this person is hurt and we can understand that they're hurt and we can do something for them to help them. So model and reinforce sharing and taking turns when your child is playing and helping your child to do that with other children. And give your child opportunities to make meaningful decisions so that they can make decisions about what they want, and give them choices. So allowing them to select a preference. So maybe, what do you want? Give them a choice out of two things, what they would like to eat. Or out of two activities, what would they like to do? And also maybe what order to do things or which book to read, so things like that. What TV program they want to watch, so that they're learning how to make decisions. So for older children, we might model about being curious about being others. So asking about others, understanding about others' emotions. And we can invite your child to be curious about others as well. So you can have conversations about that. So noticing the feelings and expressions and actions of others. So why do you think that Sarah did that? Or how do you think Nisha is feeling right now? And then you might also talk to your child about how they can develop strategies for dealing with difficult situations. So you might talk about, well, what would you do if you fell out with a friend? How would you cope with that? Or what would you do if you made a mistake or if you broke something? Or so that they might develop a plan as to how they would manage that strategy. And again, based on your child's values and your values. So the next C is contribution. And this is helping our children to develop that I can make a difference in the world. So in terms of developing resilience, it's really important that we develop a sense of meaning and purpose in the world. And that really helps us to counteract the effects of kind of anxiety and depression. So talking and modeling the value of looking after others, the value of being of service in some way or contributing in some way. And so also finding opportunities for your child to contribute to others and society. And this doesn't have to be huge. You know, we all live very busy lives and we're all looking after our families, but it might be about how, like doing a wee beach clean. So you've been to the beach and you do a 3-minute cleanup of the beach when you leave the beach. Or it might be going and asking a neighbour if they're okay and if they need anything from the shops or something like that. So it doesn't have to be huge things. You know, you don't have to volunteer your time, you know, every week, but it's looking at these small opportunities when we can make a difference. So for younger children, oops, sorry. So for younger children, we again would talk about others' feelings. So, for example, Owen is feeling sad because you took his toy truck. Please give Owen his truck back. You can choose another one to play with. So you've explained the situation. You're helping the child to see another child's feeling and develop empathy and to do something to help the other child. You can use pretend play to talk about feelings as well. And another example, even when they're young, is getting your child involved in the local community, so playgroups, other community activities. As children get a little bit older, you can think about ways they can support their friends when they might be going through difficult times. So if you're aware of a friend who's maybe suffered a bereavement or is ill, or who's someone in their family's ill or is going through something difficult time, you can come up with a plan with your child about how they might support their friend. So that might be inviting them around for tea, it might be going out for a walk with them, it might be sitting and listening to them, it might be watching a movie with them, whatever that might be. But you can help your child to think of these things together so that your child is coming up with ideas So you can make a list of ideas together and actually write down some of these things so that your child can refer back to them. And talking to your child about how they would like to be supported in difficult times. So often when we're in a difficult time, we don't know how we want to be supported because we're so overwhelmed by it. So talking in advance about how would you like to be supported when things are hard? Thinking about maybe if exams are coming up, how would you like to be supported through that? What would be good for you? So that they're planning already, they're thinking about strategies, already they're thinking about what they might need and how you can put those things in play. And you're also helping them to develop empathy as well. So encouraging your child to connect with different types of people in your community as well. So that might be people with different backgrounds, it might be people with different abilities, so that they have a sense of a community as a wider community. So we're going to talk about coping now as the next one of the 7 C's. So when we talk about coping, this is the capacity to use a variety of positive and adaptive coping strategies. So as we've talked about before, we can develop many coping strategies over our lives. And if we don't purposely develop positive and adaptive coping strategies, we can sometimes develop more unhelpful coping strategies that might work in the short term to relieve distress or to help us to manage stress, but are unhelpful in the long term. And that would be things like avoidant type coping strategies, where we just kind of brush everything under the carpet and don't think about it, or we don't talk about how we're feeling, or it might be the use of alcohol or the use of drugs. So what's really important is for you as well to look at your coping strategies and make sure that you have positive coping strategies. And if you have any strategies that are a little bit more difficult, that maybe aren't as helpful, to maybe think about how you might change those or get help with those, so that you're able to teach positive coping strategies and model these to your child. So you can help your child to develop strategies to deal with difficult situations, like we said before, for contribution, and we can encourage them to come up with their own solutions. So what would you do if, how can we feel better on an everyday basis? And when we look at what's helpful in terms of coping strategies, most of you will know these and will be doing some of them, which is great. But regular exercise is really helpful. Now, that doesn't have to be going to the gym. It doesn't have to be, running a marathon. It can be just going for a walk regularly, It might be walking to and from a neighbour's house, whatever, but you're getting some regular exercise. Healthy diet and plenty of water, staying hydrated is really, really important. Making sure that we're not eating too much sugar. So making sure that we're eating everything that we need to be eating. Getting into a good sleep routine for yourself and for your child is really important. It's a really healthy coping strategy. And it's really important in terms of resilience as well. Connecting to others, particularly others who are supportive and that you have good relationships with. So remember, we talked about before in terms of connection, what's a good relationship where we're able to maintain healthy boundaries, where we have good, clear communication, where support is reciprocal. So it's spending time with people that help you, that you feel good with, not the people that kind of drain you. And we might always have to spend some time with those people, but it's connecting to helpful others. Taking up a hobby or learning something new, getting outside, connecting to nature. And these things don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be to cost any money. There's lots of hobbies. There's lots of things that we can do that's free. There's lots of resources on the internet. Getting outside, going for a walk, connecting to nature is free. And so that's something you can do with your child. And that works as a coping strategy for you and for your child. Having regular time away from screens. So we live in a world where we have lots of screens. We're constantly in front of one, whether that's at work, whether that's at home. Your child may be on a phone, on an iPad. So making that part of your routine, to try and have that some time away from screens, and engaging your children in this. So we're going to have a thing in our family where we have some time away from screens. So how much time per day would it be helpful to have away from screens? So plan it out together. What are we going to do when we're not in front of our screen? So explaining to them, that this isn't healthy to always be in front of a screen, and then planning out together how you might do that. So practicing things like mindfulness and meditation is really helpful. So both for yourself and your child. And there's lots of resources out there about teaching children mindfulness and meditation. Lots of really fun resources on the internet. There's books, there's classes. Family resource centres have really great things going on, so you can access those. And similarly with breathing and relaxation exercises. Also learning communication skills, so that there is resources out there to help with communication skills, and remembering that one of the most positive coping strategies is seeking help when we need it. So we don't always have to do things by ourselves, and that might be seeking help through family, through friends, or through professionals. But it's making that to be part of your coping skills, so that we don't get resistant to asking for help. It's really important that we're able to do that, and that we can model that for our children as well. So coping examples, so we might let our children experience everyday adversity. So we can't avoid adversity in life. So we might practice kind of everyday adversity. So that might be for going for a walk when it's raining. So most of us don't really like going for a walk when it's raining, but it's not going to harm us. We're not made of sugar. We're not going to melt. So, practicing something like that actually teaches our children to cope with difficult times. So being able to have clear communication around our emotions is really helpful. So helping your child to put words to show how they're feeling. So you're smiling, you're happy, you look sad, helping your child to understand how they're feeling. And also helping your child to put words to how others are feeling. So Neve is crying because she's sad because she lost her teddy bear. So we're helping them to develop that empathy. And all this emotional intelligence helps with the coping strategies. So for older children, again, everyday adversity might be getting involved in a sporting activity where they're not always going to win. For example, helping your child to develop strategies to deal with difficult situations. And as we said before, with some of the other C's, helping them to come up with their own solutions. So what could we do in this situation? Helping them to recognize and regulate their emotions. So helping them to name an emotion when they're feeling it, or asking them, what is it that you're feeling right now? And help teaching them strategies to regulate their emotions. So that might be through breathing techniques. It might be through taking some time away from a situation. There's lots of other resources there about emotional regulation. And helping your child to develop healthy thinking habits. So positive self-talk, self-compassion is really, really important. So I think for a lot of us, we can have quite a critical self-talk. So we're developing that self-compassionate talk, help them to develop a sense of optimism and a positive attitude. And those are all ways that you can help them to cope with difficult times. So we then have control. So this is our sense, our ability to control the outcomes of a decision and to have a sense of control in our life. And this is really, really important in resilience, to feel like we have a sense of control in our own lives. Now, we don't always have control in our lives. Some things we can't control, but generally we do have. We are able to control our lives. So helping your child to understand that many, not all, but many events happen due to actions and choices. So this happened because I did this. It's also important to help your child to understand that some things are out of our control as well, and that's okay. Helping your child to focus on taking one step at a time, keeping the future in mind. So if we're thinking about goal planning, using SMART goals where they're specific and they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, and they're time bound, so that they can take one step at a time, so that they can keep something in the future in mind, but they're just taking one step at a time. That gives people a sense of control. Providing opportunities for your child to make decisions. So as children, often decisions get made for us. So wherever there's an opportunity for your child to make decisions, it helps them to develop that sense of control in their lives. And as we said, helping your child to understand that unfortunately in life there's some things that we can't control. So some control examples then. So for younger children, we might look at free play. So this is kind of open-ended and improvised play. So building blocks, or playing with teddies, with action figures, paintings, that can really help them to develop a sense of control because they're directing the play. Talk to your child about how they might deal with a problem rather than solving it for them. So helping them to come up with solutions or try things out rather than just immediately solving it for them. And again, you know that you're not going to be able to do this the whole time because sometimes life is busy and we just need to get on with our days, but it's finding as many opportunities as you can to do this. So it doesn't have to be perfect, you know, it just has to be good enough. So for example, what would they do if another child is playing with a toy that they would like to play with? How might they approach that? So for older children, again, providing your child with opportunities to make meaningful decisions in their life. So that might be around a hobby, it might be around what they want to do with their time, it might be about how they want to cut their hair, it might be what clothes they want to wear, things that are meaningful to them. How they want to arrange their bedroom, you know, what they want to do on a day out. And again, talking to your child about how they might deal with a problem rather than solve it for them. And obviously that's going to be age specific. So we're going to give our child more help as they're younger because they're going to need more help with that. And as they get older, we're going to help them to solve the problem themselves and give them a little bit less help with that. So for example, what would they do if they forgot their lunchbox? How would they cope? So all of these things helps your child to develop a sense of control in their life. So those are the 7 C's. And as we said, by helping your child to develop those qualities, it helps to increase their resilience and so that they can cope and bounce back more from life's challenges. There are many different ways to develop the 7 C's. So we've talked about play, spending time with others, being out with nature, body movement practices, exercise, sports, hobbies, creativity, volunteering, etc. So you can do it. There's opportunities every day to do this. And it doesn't mean that you have to kind of change your structure of your day, of your life. It just means that you're looking for these opportunities. When can this be a little lesson? When can this be a little teaching? And as we said, the more that you develop your own resilience through the 7 C's, then your child is going to learn through seeing you modeling these. And if all of your family are developing that resilience, then you'll all cope better at difficult times and you're better able to support each other. And just the last slide there is just some extra resources. So there's the local family resource centres, there's Downstrands, Dunfanaghy and Meaver Family Resource Centre, that all have some great resources there and help and courses and all sorts of things going on. There's Parent Hub, Pathways, Parent Support Service, obviously just there, and for children that are struggling, there's Jigsaw and CAMS as well. So I think if we open up for questions now, Breege.
Thank you very much for that, Cal. I've heard that talk before and I've picked up so much again now the second time around. And am I right in saying, Nicola, you're going to send this out to all the participants afterwards? So if you need to go over it again, then
Yeah,
give
so
you the chance to do that.
the slides will be going out to everybody, and so you've got time to read it all again, because I know there's a lot of information there to take.
There is a lot of learning there. Yeah. We
Yeah.
have some really good questions come through there. It's not that I prioritize them, but there's a few I'd like to know the answers myself. So I'm going to ask those first, Cal. There's one from Orla, and she says, how do we show our children that they are wrong without crushing their spirit? Now, I know we can't. I know we can't answer direct questions, individual questions, but we'll ask general questions here, okay?
So I think it's about that warmth and affection, isn't it? That depending what the situation is, we can teach a child that something is wrong, or that, but it's done with that warmth and affection, and it's done with compassion. So we might try and explain to them why they're wrong, and we might also make sure that they know that they're still loved even though they're wrong. So we're avoiding shaming. So sometimes when we know that we're wrong, when we've got something wrong or we've made a mistake, it's very easy to feel shame, because we feel like there's something wrong with me, it's not the thing that's wrong. So it's separating that. So it's letting your child know that we still love you and you're still great, but this is wrong, and explaining why. And obviously that will depend as well on the child's age as to how much you can explain that and their own understanding. But it's that doing it with compassion, and I guess it's remembering as well that compassion isn't always fluffy and nice and lovely. It's not like, oh, you did wonderful, darling. It is like, I think we did that wrong, didn't we? So let's look at how we can do that differently next time, so that you're giving it as a learning opportunity for them, with love, held within love and compassion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Good stuff. Another question that's come up here is, can this presentation be adapted to children with special needs, autism, dyslexia? There's one particular lady who said that her son had been diagnosed with dyslexia just quite recently. I was getting frustrated very easily, with angry outbursts, reading at homework. Just any tips you might have in supporting that?
So I'm not a specialist in children with special needs. There are many great resources out there in the community. I'm sure that the Parent Hub has some good resources there. I know that the BlueStacks Foundation has some really good resources as well. But yes, we can look at particularly things with emotional regulation for children who are struggling with special needs, that there might be ways that they can adapt and again, we can look at what works for your child. So depending on the needs of your child and depending on the communication levels, you can look at what is it that works for them. So how do they solve their own problems? So if a child gets very distressed in a certain situation, exploring with them what would make that situation better. So we're not going to avoid that situation, but what would make that situation better for them, if it's a situation that they can't avoid. So I think have a look at some specialist resources out there. But yeah, there's definitely ways of developing resilience with children with all sorts of different needs. Yeah,
there's some good storybooks out there. Storybooks really help in that sort of situation as well. You get the message across in different ways. Yeah. I'm going to move on to the next question, Caroline, and it's from a lady called Claire, and she talks about her child who is quite shy. She just started school, and she's wondering if there are wee tips about helping her coming out of her shell and socializing. She wouldn't be without pushing her, of course, doing it in a way that sort of, she finds social situations quite difficult. Any tips there?
So I think obviously I can't talk about individual children, but generally we might think about almost making a graded approach to socializing. So exploring with your child what's okay about socializing. Like, is one person okay, or a couple of people okay? And so thinking about how they might get involved socializing that way, or exploring what their interests are. So rather than trying to socialize with just a general group, do they have a specific interest or a hobby, and that they can socialize through that? Because often there's less pressure on the child there, because there's a focus on the interest as well. And we might think about, well, is there somebody in your class that you feel that you get on with, that you could maybe invite round to do something with? So it's kind of doing it very slowly, and exploring with them what would work for them, rather than, you know, pushing them into a big group and say, go socialize.
Very good.
And again, Bree, storybooks are really good. So there are lots and lots of books in there as well about you know, the shy child and how they develop that confidence. But yeah, exploring with your child, what is it that is a bit uncomfortable about it, and can you problem solve that together?
Very good.
And I think also, sorry, Bree,
Okay.
just, I think also that it's okay, you know, it's okay if we're a bit shy. It's okay if we don't like loads of people. You know, it's not the end of the world, you know, that some people just prefer less company and less socializing than others. And so, you know, we want to encourage our children to socialize, but at the same time, it's not a disaster, you know, that they'll find their way as well.
Finding that individuality. So another question here. Any ideas on how to encourage a child to have a more positive attitude?
So I think the big thing for this is modeling. So it's our attitude is really, really important, that if we've got a positive attitude, it can't help but rub off on the child. I think just checking in as well that your child isn't struggling with anxiety and depression, you know, when they're particularly negative with their own attitude, it would be looking at, you know, what's that about? Is it a lack of confidence, or are they struggling in some way? So that might, again, it's very difficult without knowing the specific child and knowing their circumstances as to what that's about, because it may be that the child has struggled with things in the past and has lost some confidence or has had some difficulty. So I think it's just flagging up, just checking in. But again, that modeling is really helpful, or exploring with them different solutions to things. Yeah, so communication, lots of communication.
Okay, I just see another one. Nicola, you've probably got these marked down now, haven't you? But I just see another one here saying many children are worriers. Can Caroline give examples of some coping strategies for them, please?
Yeah, so I guess it depends what children are worrying about, but there's lots of good books out there. I think there's lots of good storybooks in terms of how to manage those worries. Externalizing worries is really helpful. So thinking about the worry as being, so you could draw the worry. So what does worry look like? What does the worry monster look like if the worry thing comes? Or what's the specific worry? Or, you know, sometimes they might draw them as little flies or buzzy things or something, a little worry that comes in, and then talking with the child about how can we reduce the worries, how can we, and so you might develop something else to combat those worries, to chase them away. And so we might think about positive self-talk. So what things can you say to yourself to chase those worries away? I think it's always important to explore with your child what they're worried about as well, because it's sometimes easy to dismiss as a bit of a worry. So it's important to, is there something going on that they are really worried about? And again, it's developing that confidence. You know, confidence particularly is really helpful, so that they've got the ability to cope with whatever life comes along. So developing all of these 7 C's actually will help worry, because the more resilient they feel, the less anxiety they're likely to have. So
That
all
probably
of
links,
these things would
yeah,
help.
that probably links into the next question, which is how do we stop children from overthinking everything?
Yeah, so again, I think it depends on an individual child and their experiences, because overthinking can sometimes be a strategy to cope with difficult times in the past or traumas in the past. So I think it's understanding that some children are just overthinking thinkers though, and again, maybe checking in with yourself, is this something that you're modeling? You know, is this something that you might do in your family or other people in the family do? And then again, just developing those strategies that we've talked about in terms of control particularly is really helpful. So thinking about, okay, if you're overthinking, how can we strategize this? How can we make a problem? You know, how can we plan it so that there's lots of positive self-talk in there, and look at, do we have a plan? So if a child is worrying about the worst case scenario, okay, let's have a plan for the worst case scenario. How are we going to manage that? Or again, it might be, you know, identifying these as kind of worries to kind of separate from, with, oh, we hear the worries, we hear that, but we're not going to pay attention to it because it's just what my brain does when I'm a little bit anxious, that my brain goes into other things, so we focus on something else. So developing that kind of positive self-talk, developing some specific things for the child to think instead. Things like mindfulness and meditation can be really, really helpful for overthinking in children as well. And so developing a practice of that, also developing, again, like healthy exercise, you know, distraction with other things can be really helpful in developing that. But if it's very disruptive in their life, it's maybe having a look at what's going on specifically for that child and checking in whether that's been a coping strategy for some difficult times that have happened in the past, and it might be about getting a little bit of extra help from somewhere else.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm just very conscientious of time, and I know Nicola has a poll that she'd like to launch at the end. So if people could just take a minute to answer or to complete the questionnaire, I'd be really grateful. Caroline, thank you ever so much for that. That was really, really beneficial to my life, and my children are big now.
You're
I'm sure it was very beneficial to others as well. Yeah. So I think that poll has just gone out there now. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, the poll's just gone up there. And again, just to reiterate what you're saying, thanks to Caroline. I know there was a question there as well. There were some questions we didn't get to, but I suppose there was a lot of stuff covered in the presentation that people can look over to. And I know there were some questions as well about teenagers, and I think that's something that we may look at in the future, because again, it's an older age group that, you know, parents are maybe having struggles with at the moment, more so than, you know, ever. And I think that's something we could look at. It was an area of interest for some parents there. But thank you very much, and thanks for everybody for attending as well.